Hello and welcome to another video on the CraftySniper blog series. This really isn't another episode, however it is more of a continuation of the last video, in which I discussed about the electric AKs over gas AKs. At the end of the video I did say that the gas blowback AK, in this case the GHK AK74, would need to be cleaned and maintained at all times pretty much. But I never really demonstrated how to do that, and I just said it was how simple it was. So I'm going to now put a video up on how simple this really is. So the gun is on safe, the rounds are out of the magazine, there is no magazine even, the gun's pretty much safe to go. Take the rear button here, pull off the top cover, which I shall put there, and you end up with this spring just here. All you need to do is take the rear part of it, push it forward towards the front end of the gun, lift, and pull out. That is your recoil spring. You then remove the plastic stopper here, which just literally falls out. Put the gun now onto semi or full auto. I just do full auto just to get bits out of the way. Take the charging handle, pull the assembly back and lift out of the gun, and you end up with the bolt assembly and your recoil weight. That is how to strip down the GHK AK74 down to the parts where you need to start cleaning. We'll start with the main gun itself, and you have, if I get it back into frame, this here is your firing mechanism. You also have some runners that the bolt assembly, which is this part here, slides up and down, which obviously they need to be lubed. Basically the rule is anything that's metal where something is sliding basically needs to have some lube on it. So taking your can of lubricant, just spray it on the bits that need it, which basically is most bits in there, to be honest with you. Let it run around a bit. Now take the runners, which are just on the inside of the gun here, and do the same to them. It doesn't matter too much if your silicone spray is now running out all over your hands. To be honest with you, this is the way you need it. If the gun isn't basically dripping in the stuff, then you haven't really lubed it that much. So once that's done, that's pretty much all the lubrication you need to do when it comes to the firing mechanism and the runners for the bolt assembly. Obviously, I would recommend cleaning the inner barrel. At the moment I don't have a cleaning rod for that, but that's just the same as any other airsoft gun. Shove it through at the front, clean with some silicone spray, make sure you dry it off and don't get any hot bucking or else the thing won't work for the next 100 rounds. So we'll leave that just to get around the place and we'll move on to the next part, which is the bolt assembly. At the front we have our weight system, which always unscrews itself, so we'll just tighten that back up again. You can see, if I bring it up closer, there is a few scratch marks on here, which obviously means there's been a bit of contact. And if you turn it upside down, again, a few more scratch marks on here. This is heavily scratched, and the rear part of the nozzle system is also heavily scratched. That's not a bad thing, that just means the gun's wearing itself in. Once it gets to a point where it's taken off enough paint through firing, the gun, it'll be fine. But don't be alarmed when you take this apart after a few hundred rounds. Last time it was pitch black and perfect, now it's all scratched up. It's perfectly fine. So once again, taking your silicone spray, just put some on the part just here. Not much, but enough, and then just rub it, that's what I do, over it, just to get it a little bit moist. Sounds incredibly wrong, but this is gas dunk guns, we have to do this. And again, basically anywhere where the paint has been coming off, just rub it onto it. Don't really need to worry about too many other things, but basically that's lubed up. Obviously put some on the back as well, because there's a bit of, basically just moisten the whole of the bolt assembly. Moving on to the recoil spring itself, this obviously moves up and down, so it needs to have a little bit of lube on it, so just basically spray along that and you'll be perfectly fine. That's all I'd really do to it, other than obviously, like I say, cleaning the inner barrel. Now to reassemble this gun is basically the reverse of what I did to start off with. So taking the gun, line it upright, take your bolt assembly, push it into the top part, the weight into the top part, and slide it in place until you get it under its own rails, and then push it all the way forward. Also, that's why you need to have these rails fully lubed, because this gun, as it cycles, does this all the time. So that's going to obviously grate if you don't put any lubrication on it. Then you get the plastic stopper. Assemble that back into place. It's supposed to be that loose, and don't worry about that, and it is good quality plastic. It is very weighted at one end, very thick plastic, so even though this part here is going to be hitting this, nothing really to worry about. It can't jump out. Then take the recoil spring, push it into the top part of the bolt assembly, push forward, and then remount back into its clips here. So basically that can't jump out. Once you've got that on, making sure that's perfectly straight, here comes the fun part. I've always found the top cover on an AK, especially on this one, is to be a bit of a sod to put on. Either it goes on perfectly first time or it takes forever. What I have found is, sometimes this works, lining up the front part with the front part of the gun, bringing it down towards where the button is, and getting it to this stage, and then give it a tap. Don't be afraid, this is an AK. It's not a real world AK, but it is pretty much the same as the real steel AK. It does take its dings. Now obviously I have silicone spray all over the dust cover. This gun will now leak. It will leak like a sieve. There's nothing to worry about. Once you get the gun and the magazine together, this gun will smell like silicone spray when you're firing it, but as the gun cycles, it will get the lubricant to where it needs to go. So, like I say, that's the simple process of lubing up in this case, a GHK AK74. This process is pretty much the same for any of the AK range from GHK. They're all pretty much the same to strip down. I will do a video demonstrating G5's ability to be cleaned and maintained, and that again is exactly the same, very, very simple. So that's the video on cleaning in this case, GHK 74. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you want to know any more about this particular weapon system, feel free to ask any questions you like.